welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm excited to have this next guest on. He goes by the name of Donovan Wright. He's working on a Guilde app, which is trying to make renovation stress-free. So for all those homeowners out there, all those contractors out there, this is one that you definitely don't want to miss, and we're glad that you're tuning in today. So without further ado, I want to bring Donovan to the stage. How's it going, Donovan?
It's going good, man. Can't complain. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Appreciate you hopping on the platform. We got that Guilde app in that right top corner there on the screen. So I wanna give the mic to you. Set the stage for us. Let us know a little bit about Donovan prior to you starting the Guilde app. Like, tell us, what your story was before you decided to wear this hat as a founder.
Yeah, man. So born and raised in Virginia, went to the Mecca for my undergrad, which is Howard University, the best university in the world. Graduated in 2013, moved to Detroit to work for Ford Motor Company. So jumped right into the big corporate automotive industry, doing a lot of different aspects of marketing in there, which is what I studied at Howard. And then really started to kind of get that passive income bug that everybody was talking about in the early 2014, 2015 timeframe with Airbnb and, Bigger Pockets, which was another huge influence for me. And then started on the real estate path from there.
That's dope, man. And you starting out in real estate is quite the challenge by itself. But so tell us a little bit about what you saw being a homeowner that got you to that point where that idea went off in your head. That was the genesis of Guilde.
Yeah, so I had purchased my first property and was about to go through the process of getting it renovated. And so long story short, get connected with a great contractor, but who's on the older side. So pretty much everything is cash and paper. Going through the process, I end up $25,000 over budget in 2 months and delays from when I was supposed to have the property live and have a tenant in it versus when I finally did. And I just sat there, basically was just like, I cannot let this happen again, because the real estate industry is unforgiving for most people when they try to get that first property. And if you make a mistake, lose all your money, get the wrong property, get the wrong contractor, the real estate industry often doesn't give second chances. So it's like, I'm not going to let this happen again. I want to improve this process, use that marketing background to find what these pain points were and how I could address them. And once I kind of laid it out, I started to look for, okay, there has to be some type of platform out there that can help me with these things. And there just wasn't. So I was just like, well, if I'm going to do this from a real estate perspective, I need this tool. So I'm just going to get this tool built. But the more I did research for Guilde, the more information I got, the more potential customers and users I talked to, I just fell in love and was just like, well, I'm just going to focus on this.
That's dope, man. And you being that honest about that going $25,000 over budget, that's a hard pill to swallow. That's a lot of money, right? And so you really taking the time before you jump in head first again. I commend you for that move, because like you said, real estate can be an unforgiving industry. And we can even think back to the extreme case when at the end of the 2000s, right, where a lot of home prices pretty much just cratered, and it took probably 10 years. We're just now getting to the point where they recovered. Yeah. And so that was a smart move. You probably bucked a lot of trends with taking your time and gathering that feedback, though. But I commend you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I think that's one of the things that, I don't know, I guess it's probably common amongst a lot of founders, is like they do the work to discover where the gaps are, where the problems exist, regardless of them actually founding a company, right? That's just kind of innately in them, that curiosity to be like, how can I make this better?
Got it. And so it sounds like your experience in marketing, you leverage that somewhat, right? You mentioned that. So in terms of that customer discovery piece, like, what do you throw out there to all the founders on that are at that phase of their business? Like, what's something to keep top of mind as you're going through that customer discovery?
Find different demographics of personas, right? So like being based in Detroit, there is kind of a urban renaissance that's going on. So I was able to talk to your homeowners who are just like, I'm just focused on my property, your boutique mom and pop landlords, right? Like they got a couple duplexes, things like that. Transplants, folks who've moved here or who are moving here and trying to renovate a property, not even here yet. And then large scale commercial investors who have, 100-unit multifamily property portfolios, things like that. Like diversify, because you're going to find that different groups of people have different types of problems. And you don't want to make the mistake of, how do I solve every single one of their problems? But being able to cut down and say, okay, here's where I can really focus on and bring value to this very specific subset of people. And that's what I did in talking to all those different users on the demand side, and also talking to a bunch of contractors on the issues that they're having in dealing with customers. Because at the end of the day, as a two-sided platform, I have to talk to the supply and the demand side and make sure that they line up.
I appreciate you, Donovan, that in that segment there. That's what we call dropping gems, for sure. So appreciate you for sharing that with the listeners.
No problem. It's really like, man, this is what this podcast is about. There's so much I learned from other founders where I'm just like, that's a good idea. I need to use that in my own business and see where I can get value out of it.
Okay, so you started around 2019. That was prior to the pandemic. So then the pandemic hits, and it seems like everybody's just at home, like fixing their house.
Yep.
So Can you talk about a little bit about how that period was for you? Like what type of growth you saw? Because again, I can speak from experience. I was at home just looking for stuff to fix.
Yeah. So it actually is how I built my initial customer list. So 2020, we weren't actually launched yet. We were still building out that initial platform. And I was just doing a ton of customer research. So what 2020 actually allowed me to do was focus down on what my MVP was going to be and exactly what pain points we were going to address, because I had so many folks I can interview who were going through that process. And then there was also so much I could learn from contractors who were dealing with this unknown, because there was a part of the year, at least here in Michigan, where all construction was stopped as well. Like no one could be on the job sites, no one could go into a property. So it was really just a great learning experience, so we could hit the ground running in 2021.
Nice. Taking advantage. And I'm curious, did you feel any pressure during that period to launch, just because it seems like it was like kind of like a golden opportunity for a business like yours, where again, you touched on, you have all this feedback coming in. Did you feel any pressure to actually get something out and start building some traction?
Oh, definitely. But I got good advice from my advisors and investors to not rush to market. Of course, there's the lean startup method where it's like, well, you could just start doing this, and just build something out of duct tape. But my concern was, especially with the current environment we were in 2020, was launching something that would create a bad customer experience. And once a startup kind of sets off on that path, it's hard to come back from. Maybe easier in different ecosystems, but Detroit they're already very conservative when it comes to technology. So I was just like, I would rather launch and have it right than, just trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
Got it. And being in that market too, I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have a decent amount of feedback coming from different types of homeowners, investors, and things like that. Like you probably had a pretty built out demographic, right? If I can call it that, in terms of the different types of individuals you were getting feedback from.
Absolutely. Just because Detroit is kind of going through a renaissance when it comes to urban development. So I was able to talk to all your boutique investors, your mom and pop landlords, homeowners, transplants who are moving in to Detroit, and then even large scale investors who have, a portfolio of 100 to 200 different doors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and even within what you just said, I appreciate you giving me all these nice segues. You touched on like your investors, right, and getting some having your tribe ready to giving you that good feedback. So I'm curious, first up, how did you go about selecting who your advisors were going to be for the business?
Yeah, so the best advice I ever got when it came to advisors was to only make advisors of people who would do it for free regardless. And so that's how I started off. So I did a couple programs in the local ecosystem, specifically it's like incubator kind of economic development program called Tech Town. So I met a lot of cool people there. And a lot they focus on bringing in folks who've done it before, and they look at entrepreneurship differently. Like it's not just tech. So they bring in people who, launched hotels, restaurants, retail stores, medical devices, things like that. So that's where I started. And then also went through my network of previous college professors, professional colleagues who were doing really cool and really great things, and would just reach out to them just to be like, hey, can I bounce this off your idea? Can I bounce this idea off of you? Can I have a conversation about this? Or this is what I'm seeing. Can I get your perspective? And the more folks were willing to engage before I was like even thinking about, would you be willing to be an advisor? And, let's get an advisor agreement or get you on my pitch deck, all that stuff. That's how I built it out. Just built out a tribe of people who just wanted to see me succeed, regardless of what it meant for them.
Oh, that's a definitely what I would call in this day and age, we call that a beyond normal concept. Every business is tech enabled now.
Yep.
And so I think focusing on the core of your problem, right, which you already alluded to, is really the homeowner experience and not necessarily the technology enabling. And technology makes everything easier. We understand that, but that's not really the core of the problem. And I feel like the way that you position Guilde and what you're going after, it resonated with me even without knowing the technology, right? Just because the pain point I understood. And so I definitely think that's a beyond normal concept because, again, today, in this day and age, everybody on their pitch and everything like that, they just kind of push the technology to the front. And I understand everything's tech enabled, but at the end of the day, like how are you impacting people's lives? Like, what's that story you're trying to tell?
Exactly. And that's why I always start off with my story, getting into real estate, to put anyone, that I'm pitching or just talking to customers and users, to put that focus that we're trying to solve a real pain point for people. Now, how we solve that may look differently, but that is the focus of the people we're trying to help.
Got it. And so, all right, there's a couple different ways we can take this. But earlier you touched on going to, I think you called it the best university in the world, maybe something along those lines, Howard. And so I'm curious, have you been able to tap into that alumni base and that community any? Because that is a strong base, and I'm pretty sure there's some excellent resources within that Howard alumni/community base.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been able to connect with, really just classmates who are starting their own startups, getting advice from them. Some of my investors are Howard alum. My director of operations and sales, I met her through one of my investors. She also she went to Howard, which is hilarious because we went to Howard at the same time, but yet never interacted. But we have similar friends and connections from there. So she joined the team up to kind of give me more experience, both in the residential and commercial construction space. And then, Howard just has a very wide network to be able to connect with people from other ecosystems, even other countries, that I've been able to tap into.
Got it. Oh, that's awesome, man. I wish I could take advantage of that, but I did not go to an HBCU. And that's something
hey
right
man, you
now, like,
gotta
dang, like
yeah, that HBCU network is yeah, it's
it's
nothing like
crushing right now. It's
yeah,
crushing.
yeah, especially with the way kind of black tech is moving, right? In the areas that are being innovated by black entrepreneurs and black technologists, being able to plug into a HBCU, like it's all. I mean, I think Howard is the best college, hands down. But I also love my network from folks at Spelman, Morehouse, North Carolina A&T, um, FAMU, Bethune-Cookman. Like they all represent and show out.
Yeah, that's dope, man. That's dope. And I actually, when I'm looking for businesses to invest in, like if I see HBCU like businesses, like I'm like, okay, you got a certain pedigree, like, all right, you got a network, obviously, like, and then I look for those a little bit more, and I'll actually like look to invest in those more moving forward. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, yeah.
So okay, so next up, let's touch a little bit about as mo- most of the founders that come up here, in terms of the areas where you feel like you're strong at. You mentioned earlier your marketing background. You working in corporate America for some time. Like, what's the area of the business where it's like an opportunity for you, an area you may have to spend a little bit more time. You wear a lot of hats as the owner, the founder. And so I'm curious, like, what's that area of the business where you spend a little bit more time because there's more opportunity, or you may have just not have a lot of experience in that space?
Yeah, so it's really business development. Like I know a lot of people say technology, but I want to go with somewhere like a little less obvious. So that sales pipeline, not so much on the demand side, but on the supply side. So like contractors, like construction tech, prop tech, real estate is really hot right now,
Mm-hmm.
and so contractors are getting pulled in a bunch of different directions. They know that their industry is the last frontier, right? I think in terms of all the data, in terms of construction, I think construction as an industry has about a 3% technology adoption rate, which is like the lowest you can go and compare it to any other industry vertical. So contractors are getting called constantly. Try this new platform, do this, you should automate this. But a lot of them also are resistant just because most contractors are typically on the older side, and they're not that abreast with the latest technologies. So they understand that there's a need, but there's just so much noise. So what I've really been spending a lot of time in is how do we cut through that noise and create value for those contractors and show that we want to be a partner with them rather than just make money off of them.
Mm-hmm. That's big, man, and that's usually a hat founders that BD/sales. That's usually a hat founders wear by default, and so it's good. I think that you're saying that that's a real big opportunity for you, and you have a two-way marketplace, right? So it's like kind of double the work. Like you're wearing different hats, and depending on who you're talking to, whether it be the owner of the property or, like you said, the talent that's actually doing the work. And incentivizing them. And going back to my sales days, we used to call it with them, what's in it for me.
Yep.
And like you said, there's so much noise nowadays due to technology. We all get a million emails a day. Like really finding your path through all of that noise is sometimes hard. So you're out here making it easier for them with your BD focus for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing, right? Like when it comes to contractors, most aren't readily looking for technological solutions. So like you don't have the incoming the way you would for like if we use Slack as an example, right? Like everyone's looking for ways to communicate more easily, or HubSpot, where like CRM is the big thing for small businesses. When it comes to contractors, like they're in the field, they're getting their hands dirty. They don't have time to sit and look for something that's going to make their job easier. So it's really developing that skill set, which is it's a skill set to be able to sell a person and convince them that this will bring value to you and it's something you need within your workflows.
Yeah, that's dope. So, okay, so now we can get to the technology piece and things like that. So, can you walk us through how we, as a property owner, I would leverage this platform. Like, what's the flow look like?
Yeah, so basically, a renovation comes down the way we communicate it here at Guild. A renovation has 4 key phases. So phase 1 is the connection, which is literally just connecting supply and demand, contact information, get a contractor. Phase 2 is choose. So going through the process of choosing who you want to work with, what you're getting done, how much you're willing to pay, all of those different aspects. Then phase 3 is initiating the project, which is its own process in and of itself that most people don't realize. And then phase 4, which a lot of people kind of just think's going to happen automatically, is completing. So how do you actually close the loop and finish that renovation when all the work is done? How do you make sure everyone who's supposed to get paid gets paid? How do you make sure that the project that was delivered is actually the project that aligns with your scope of work? What Guild does is use big construction data to automate and streamline the steps for property owners through those 4 phases.
Appreciate that. Short and sweet. I like it. It sounds like you going through and got the feedback from the actual users, and so you've iterated quite a bit. I'm curious, like, how many times do you feel like you've iterated the product to get to the point where you're at now?
A bunch. So like even identifying, like we had in big picture of, okay, we know this is a process, right? But even being able to get down to the granular level, but keep it very concise in those 4 phases were difficult. And seeing like what can we automate versus what we can streamline, and what will the data enable us to do, and how would it benefit a property owner? Now, of course, we're not to full AI and automation yet at our MVP. But a lot of those initial administrative and operational tasks, like getting a quote schedule, right? Getting a scope of work, understanding what your deliverable is, we're already automating those steps through the platform. So for a property owner, basically what it comes down to, they're a much more informed decision maker prior to any money exchanging hands or any work being done, which 70% of the things that go wrong with the renovation go wrong in that initial process of getting started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and both parties being on the same page, I'm assuming that that's been like the painful part. Like you pay for something like this, and if you're not really informed, when you get to the end, you're just like, yeah, this doesn't really look like the picture that I saw online, or like the YouTube, right? Video, going back to the YouTube, people just Googling things. And so having that awareness up front, I think that's gonna be big moving forward. And even thinking just from a generational perspective, people are buying homes later and later. And so these aha moments are happening for people, millennials in their 30s. And I don't know for the generations after us what that trend looks like, but we need some help in terms of understanding what these things are for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the housing stock in America is extremely old. So I think the median age for a home in the U.S. is 43 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And then 40% of our housing stock now that we have available is 50 years old or older. So as millennials, which we already make up the largest cohort of home buyers now, all of those properties are going to be needed. They're going to be needed to get renovated. But unfortunately, mm-hmm. they're going to need a lot of renovations, and some, very intense renovations. But most folks don't have experience with it. So even if it looks nice when it's done, most people don't start noticing things are off until after they lived in it, right? Like, that cabinet doesn't quite sit right, or this light switch is supposed to turn on that light, but it doesn't work. These outlets aren't working the way they want to. But by that time, the contractor has moved, has taken the final payment and moved on. Mm-hmm. So it's, can you go through the process to try to get that person to come out again, by threatening a bad review or whatever? Mm-hmm. Or do you just foot the bill for another contractor to come in and fix what wasn't done the first time?
Yeah, that's an experience I've had before, Donovan. Like, you were just like, I feel like you're in my brain.
I'm telling you, man, this is just from doing the work of customer discovery and going through the process myself multiple times, and just sitting down and having interviews with homeowners and property owners who have told me, I mean, the most horrific renovation stories. And this is not to paint contractors, because I've sat down with contractors who've dealt with horrific customers and trying to get stuff done. And what people have to understand, and what Guilde's our main goal is to get contractors and property owners to understand that you guys are actually on the same team. You have the same goal. The problem is the current process is antiquated. It makes it extremely difficult for you to collaborate to get to that goal. And that's where Guilde wants to sit, as that bridge between the two, get everyone on the same page, and let's deliver a great project.
I like that, man. That's definitely dope. You know, as we wrap up, I want to pass it to you. You know, what's the best way for folks to tap in with the brand, and just keep in tune with what's coming forward. Obviously, some of us are homeowners, so we're going to use the app, and some of us may be, you know, just looking for that next tool to use. So how can folks stay connected with Guilde?
Yeah, so we're Try Guilde on all social media platforms, TRYGUILDE.com. Follow us on LinkedIn. That's mainly where we post right now. So you can follow our story. You can follow me, Donovan Wright, at It Feels Right on Instagram, Twitter, and just, you know, plug into the journey. We're only located right now in Metro Detroit, but as we build up traction, we definitely want to expand, of course, and spread into other regions. But right now, yeah, that would be the best way to kind of follow along the journey.
Got it. And so you mentioned being in Detroit for right now. Are there any cities that are on your radar in terms of that future growth?
Yeah, so this summer we're looking to spread to the rest of the state in Michigan, and then basically take a regional approach. So start with the Midwest, then move down south, East Coast, Northeast, and West Coast. That's kind of our rollout plan.
Come on down south. We ready for you. Donovan, I appreciate you sharing your story. It's near and dear to my heart because this is something I deal with as a homeowner. I want my family to be in a safe environment. That's always top of mind for me. So as soon as I saw your app, I just said, I got to have a conversation with Donovan. And like you said, this space is pretty hot right now. So I'm excited to see other founders pop up in this space and look to take on these challenges when it comes to just real estate in general. That's very broad, I know. I want to pass it to you one last time. Like, what's that final thought you want folks who are listening in to take away from this conversation that we had today?
Yeah, I mean, mainly for those who are listening who have an idea and want to, or maybe not even have an idea, but they want to be an entrepreneur in some facet. Like, look for a problem to solve. It doesn't have to be a technical problem. Just look for a problem to solve in your own life, in your community's lives. And I promise you that will be so much more fulfilling than just solving something for the sake of the financial gain that you would get it, right? Like, if you solve people's problems, the money will come, the equity will come, the investors will come the moment you solve somebody's problem. But the benefit to that person whose problem is solved will be way more greater than any financial outcome.
That's dope. The perfect final thoughts. That's a mic drop moment from Donovan. So all I'm going to say is thanks for tuning in to another great episode of the Beyond Normal Podcast.